Hey guys, Society Reviews here, my review of the film Hijack 1971. It's popular amongst Gen Z to say that beef between two individuals or entities is generational. Well, there's no beef more generational than the beef between North Korea and South Korea. Arguably the only two nations that have more beef with one another than Israel and Palestine are the divided Korean nations. Whether it's the hardcore commies of the North or the brand-happy capitalists of the South, you can always suspect that whenever a film from the Korean region is talking about the opposite nation, a lot of unresolved issues are going to come to light. For a film entitled Hijack 1971, the film gives audiences an introduction to what has caused so much tension between the two nations for several decades. In the late 1960s, a commercial airliner was hijacked by North Korean terrorists who flew the plane from Seoul all the way to North Korean territory. After days of international tribulation, roughly 90% of the South Korean hostages were released back to their own country. However, the most useful people on the plane were forced to be left behind and serve the North Korean government against their will. Many never returned home. As a country that knows all about international incidents involving planes, Hijack 1971 is one of the most intriguing dramas of the year. Set in 71, obviously, Tae-in is a first officer of a civilian airliner who has worked his way up to co-pilot just a couple of years after being on the opposite end of a North Korean hijack. 2 years earlier, Tae-in was a South Korean Air Force pilot who, as a hijacker, stole a plane and flew it into North Korean territory in an incident that saw Tae-in lose his best friend as a result. Now he's on the opposite side of things, being responsible for the lives of nearly 40 passengers on a routine flight out of Korea. What he doesn't know, however, is that another North Korean hijacker who was inspired by the event that took place in '69 has decided to steal another plane in hopes that he can go to North Korea and attain wealth and fame from the nation. The hijacker has a gun and several bombs to make sure nobody messes with his road to glory. This puts Tien in the absolute impossible position of attempting to save the passengers from another hijacker while preventing them from going into North Korean territory or being shot down by the South Korean government. Hijack 1971 is a film that is based on true events. The central theme of this movie revolves around the consequences and the actions being haunted by those making both the right and wrong decisions. When it comes to our protagonist, he's a character who deals with a great sense of regret by not making a call to shoot down a civilian airliner, which would have prevented several members on board from being kidnapped by the North Korean government. While he made the decision that ultimately saved the most lives, the fact that several passengers never returned to the country haunts him. To make matters worse, the actions of our hijacker has now inspired the antagonist to hijack another plane in hopes of gaining fame and glory for himself. Our antagonist of this film is a civilian hijacker who's a South Korean man who was once falsely accused of being a North Korean defector. As a result of this false accusation, he spent time in jail, which indirectly led to the death of his mother. Growing with hatred of the South Korean government, he decides to perform the ultimate act of rebellion by delivering unsuspecting victims to North Korea in hopes that his act will be seen as heroic by the North after he was condemned as a villain by the South. For Western audiences, it's always intriguing to see an international conflict from nations that don't involve the United States. As the film considers itself to be a disaster movie, the way it hooks audiences into the story by giving a brief introduction of several characters who are on the play relays the severity of the situation at hand. The film is a shining window of the actions of heroism and villainy. Despite understanding that the clear actions of the antagonist are bad, you still feel for his situation and how he got here by being mistreated by the same people who he thought he can trust. On the flip side, our protagonist is given a second chance to do the right thing and save all the lives of the passengers, even if that means giving up his own. Hijack 1971 is a bold and brilliant film that showcases the tension of a dire situation that is done far better in this movie than in movies that are actually in the horror genre that look to achieve the same effect. The film is the perfect summer movie for those desperately seeking a little bit more quality and fewer yellow Twinkies with the kids. I give this film a 4 out of 5.
지금 하이제킹 상황이야. 지금부터 이 비행기 이북 간다.